Hey there, isn't it fancy catching you here? You know, it's been a while since we've last spoken. How's the job treat? Things going well? Thinking about meeting up with old friends after a while. I met up with my old friend Montgomery Gator. People know him as Monty, as his stage name for that whole rockstar gig. But ever since he picked up that rockstar gig, he never really had time for any of his old friends or hanging out. And, you know, I was okay with this. However, the other day, he called me and asked, "Hey, Monty, I mean Hippo, you wanna catch up and go fishing?" Now, of course, I couldn't say no to that, so I packed my fishing gear. I put it on the back of the truck. I drive over to where he said to meet up, which was this old shack a couple counties over. Now, I don't know why he'd asked me to drive so far, but the old shack was stationed right next to this old pond, really big pond. And he'd stated that it was a very, very good pond for fishing. But I digress. So I drive over. I meet him over at the old shack. Creepy old shack it was. Covered in mold, the wood was barely held together, and there was spider webs everywhere. And I'd asked him, "Hey, Monty, is this your shack?" I assume he didn't hear me, because instead of answering my question, he looked over to me and held up this big burlap sack he was carrying. And he said, "Hey, Hippo, could I get a quick hand chucking this here bag of compost into the pond?" Now, of course, not much of a botanical man myself, so I had to ask, "Why would you need to fertilize a pond? Nothing's growing in there." And Monty, he looked over to me, he looked away, looked over to me again, looked at the bag, looked at me, and he said, "Well, there's seaweed at the bottom of the pond here, and it's good for the fish." And of course, who am I to question a man who's grown up around bodies of water his whole life? So I obliged and helped him chuck the bag into the river, but I couldn't help but notice these two lumps on the bag. It kind of reminded me of Rabbity as they did. So I asked her, "Hey, Auntie, why is the bag so lumpy?" And he responded, I thought dead animal or something." Yeah, dead rabbit. A little rabbit got into the bag. It's, you know what happens every once in a while, but carcasses are good for the pond." Now, again, I'm not one to question my friend's knowledge, so I just wave it off and help him chuck it into the pond. And, almost at the very moment, the bag touches the water. He looks over to me and he's like, "Hey, thanks, wonderful help. I gotta go now." And, I chime in. I say, "Well, weren't we here to go fishing?" And, he looks over to me and he says, "Well, I forgot my fishing rod." And, I point over to the spare that I bring just in case my rod snaps. And, he scratches the back of his head and responds, "Well, there's no fish left in the water. There's a fish pandemic." And, again, not really one to question my friend's knowledge, so I shrug and get back to the truck and drive home. Looking back on it, Monty was acting awfully neurotic that day. He was looking over his shoulder all the time and asked me if I'd been followed. And, a lot of